Hi everyone, this is Father Michael Nasser coming to you from St. Nicholas in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and here for this week's midweek reflection. I asked early on if anybody had any topics they wanted me to cover to send them in, and so this is the first one that we're going to be doing from a topic that was sent in. It was sent in by a friend who said it's an issue that she talks to a lot of people about, and I think it's a common issue, so I think it's one that is important to address, and that is the topic of people living together before they get married. Now, this used to be a pretty controversial thing, and unfortunately, in a lot of circles, it's really not anymore. It's become so common, and not just among people who aren't church people or religious people. I had a young girl call me several years ago to talk about her own preparation for marriage. And her question to me, as a good Orthodox Christian, was, what's wrong with me that I'm the only one of my Orthodox friends that's not living with my future spouse before marriage? And I said, of course, there's nothing wrong with you. You're doing it the right way. It's just unfortunately become not always the thing that everybody chooses to do. So I want to talk about why I think it is important that people don't live together before they're married. I'm not going to get into the sexual aspect of it in this video. We could talk about that at a separate time. But I want to talk about the idea of living together because I think there's some really important misconceptions in that idea. You know, I think it's important when we talk about maybe what somebody is doing that we don't think is all that great. I think it's important to look at their good intentions. I think people that choose to live together before they get married are doing it for what at least they see as good reasons. They want to be sure that the person that they're with is the right person. Perhaps they intend to get married, but they want to be sure first. They want to have that time together. They want to test things out. And maybe because they value marriage, they don't want to get married to somebody that maybe it's not going to work out with. So, again, good intentioned, but I think sometimes misinformed. And I want to talk about why I think some of these assumptions that we have when people are making decisions are maybe good at first sight to them, but are really unexamined, and I think have some pretty bad assumptions tied to them. I think one of the assumptions that people have is that, well, we want to have a successful marriage, and so we got to see if it's going to work. And the assumption there is uh, if it's going to work, meaning if we're going to be happy with each other. And that assumption is our marriage will be successful if each of us gets something from the other. If the other person makes me happy, that's what's going to make for a successful marriage. And that's what I think is the first really bedrock wrong assumption for why living together is a good idea. Um, it takes the basis of marriage, which is commitment, first, and basing your marriage on the commitment, and flipping it to saying it's going to based on my what I'm getting out of it, how happy I am with the relationship, and then I'll commit after. It takes that and it makes it the opposite. Um, I think people think that, well, we want to make sure we're going to be happy when we get married. When we get married, it's interesting. Statistics are sort of all over the map on this, but what I've found is that in general, most studies have said that if a couple lives together before they get married, they're actually more likely to not stay married. They're more likely to divorce. Now, there are a lot of criticisms of those conclusions. Some people say it's because of the age, and there's some other things. But whether or not those studies tell a story, I think there is a story in that if we are marrying someone on the basis of what they do for us, you're already building marriage on a lousy foundation. It's the opposite of the foundation. We might remember that song. I think it was Frank Sinatra, "Love and Marriage, Love and Marriage. They go together like a horse and carriage." And love not as just the romantic view that we get out of watching movies and TV shows, but love as we define it in light of Christ and what real love is, which is Christ dying for us out of his love for us. Real love is sacrifice. Real love is giving. We might have romance. Hopefully, we do have romance in a relationship. It's a wonderful thing to have. But to build on romance, build on what I get from the person and not on what I'm going to give to the person is a very shaky foundation for marriage. And that's why, if the studies are right that living together actually makes it worse for their marriage, I think that's probably why that is. Um, we understand love differently. Those of us who follow Jesus Christ understand love as he's taught it to us, which is that sacrificial love. shown most completely from the cross. But then he says, if you want to follow me, take up your cross and follow me. We're going to talk a lot about the cross in the coming days with the feast, the exaltation of the cross coming up, or the elevation of the cross coming up in less than a week, and the Sundays before and after. There's a lot of focus on the way of the cross. That's the way of a Christian. It's the way that says you're more important. What you need is more important, not what I'm getting out of the relationship. And that's where I think so many couples, they fall in love and they have this image that they've gotten out of movies and TV. But somewhere down the line of their models is the Christian idea of love. And I think if we were to all elevate that image of love, I think we'd see that really in the modern day, we've really sort of lost, a lot of people have lost the real strong foundation for a marriage, which is sacrificial love that produces romance, not a romance that automatically will produce sacrificial love. It often doesn't. In fact, when romance starts to fade, people think, oh, something's wrong. You'll hear people say things like, well, I fell out of love. Well, of course you fell out of love if that idea of romance is your idea of love. Romance comes and goes. You can work on it. We should work on it in a marriage. But what we have as a bedrock is that self-sacrificial love for the other. And when that person is doing the same thing for us, ideally, then talk about what real romance can develop, because both people are sacrificing for the other, each one living for the other, wanting the other's best and their growth. And that really is not only a firm foundation for marriage, but a wonderful foundation for romance to grow. So just some thoughts to think about. Maybe you have a friend that's thinking about moving in with their boyfriend or girlfriend. Maybe you share this with them, or take a few thoughts and share those with them yourself. Hopefully this was helpful. If it was, please, again, share it with somebody, put on your social media platforms. And if you have a topic that you'd like me to address, please send that along. My email address is frmichael@stnicholasgr.com. Send me the topic, and I will try to address it in an upcoming video. I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of their week. We're celebrating the Nativity of Theotokos, which we celebrated yesterday, continue to celebrate, leading us into the feast of the elevation of the cross coming up. So God bless everyone. Have a great rest of your week.